John McNamara, host of Runnin Vegas. We're talking local sports, business, real estate. If you guys like you see, subscribe, follow us on Runnin Vegas podcast. Today, I got my co-host, Mr. Ryan Pulliam, in the house.
What's happening?
I know, it's been a minute.
It has been a minute. I was thinking, like, I missed this. It's kind of got to knock the rust off a little bit for me.
We usually have our monthly pod. And
I know. But you've been doing great, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to keep it going.
I like
it's not the same without you, though.
I appreciate that.
All right, so let's get in. Today, we're going to be talking UNLV basketball, transfer portal. Let's get into a little bit of Raiders, NFL draft. So let's kick it off. UNLV basketball. So we haven't actually talked in 2 months.
It's been a minute.
So what was your thoughts end of the season? Before we go into transfer portal, what was your thoughts about the UNLV basketball season?
Towards the end of the year, we kind of figured, hey, man, we're playing some of the best basketball towards the end of the season. Maybe things are finally starting to glue, and who knows, we could possibly make a run in the Mountain West tournament. Neither of us were really confident we would, but right. it was more of a possibility at the end of the season than it was probably mid-season. The team was, for the most part, competitive. It's just consistently inconsistent, what we talked about. And, I think that you can kind of see what Josh Pastner wants to do with the program, play tough defense, because he really tightened up that rotation at the end of the year, and it was only kids that were really playing tough defense that were getting any minutes. But they just struggled closing games and couldn't hit some shots in the big ones. And when Gibby got shut down, those couple second halves, they just couldn't win a game. So that's how the season ended, unfortunately.
Yeah, what'd you think about the NIT?
I was impressed. I didn't think we were going to go. It's funny, I don't use my phone on Sundays. So Monday morning, I wake up to a bunch of texts that were in the NIT, and I think, heck, man, that was the peak of what Kevin Kruger got us to. And if Pastner can do that in his first season with a limited roster, which he had to work with, it kind of gave me a little bit of hope for the future. Yeah,
me too. As funny as it may sound, I was a little in my head. I didn't tell you this, but it was like we were at 17 wins. I'm like, they couldn't get 18 wins, and then they got that 18th win in the NIT. And as funny as that may sound, it kind of made me feel good. It wasn't a good season, but or a great season, I should say. But it was. I feel like that's the bare minimum to keep your job at UNLV. And I think Pastner would have kept the job for another year if you got that 17th or 18th win, to be very clear. But we definitely need to see progress. And so we're officially in the transfer portal.
So are most of the Rebels. If not all of them.
Like the whole team, I had Austin Starr on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about him. Like, hey, we're going to have 4 or 5 guys coming back. Thank God you came back in 2 weeks, because none of that held true. Gibbs Loudhorn, he's in the transfer portal. What's your thoughts?
I think everybody saw this coming. In today's market, buckets get bucks, and these guys are going to go out and they're going to make a name for themselves. I had heard that our former UNLV running Rebel and transfer Didon Thomas Jr., I think he signed with Houston.
Yeah, I love that signing.
For a decent NIL deal, and they're saying that Gibbs may get a little bit more, or about the same for that. I don't know if UNLV can, because there's so many spots to fill, I don't know if they can really match that. So odds are he's gone. But again, like we talked about with Calandria, it's the nature of the beast right now. So you have to understand that these kids are going to go out and they're going to get paid, and they have to look out for themselves. So sad, because he was such a prolific scorer. I've loved watching him play, loved his energy. But that's what you get when you're a mid-major program. You guys are probably going to be a stepping stone for a couple of these kids that can score the bucket.
So here's a question for you. How would he rank for you? Because I've only been watching UNLV basketball for, 15, 17 years. So he was the best scoring guard that I can remember shooting. In your time of watching UNLV, how would he rack up in the history of UNLV for that second half in the Mountain West?
Yeah, so, I think, Trevor Diggs was a really good scorer. The kid was so fast, so it played a little bit different. But the way that he could create Bryce, Hamilton, thank you. Bryce Hamilton was the same thing, where he could just create his own shot, and Hamilton was pretty much all that team had. Gibbs was good because he was playing out of position. He's playing point guard. He's typically a 2 guard. He was still being able to create for his other players and score on his own. But, again, J.R. Ryder, I think somebody that could just dominate the the scoring, and just every single time he gets the ball, you think, okay, it's gonna go in.
Oh, okay.
And so different style of play, but at the same time, just the ability to score was pretty amazing. And again, fun kid to watch. I wish him the best wherever he goes. I'll be a Gibby fan next year for sure.
Yeah, I think it was a good move by him. Yeah, we all saw it coming. Take the money. Last year, he probably wants to compete, in the NCAA tournament. He's a high-scoring guard. It was just beautiful watching that guy taking those long threes and them going in.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Hamilton, yeah, he's probably the second best scorer I can remember, but Hamilton was more of a mid-range shooter. Thankfully, he stayed at UNLV. Those teams could have been even way worse without him. Like, he was
100%.
really the only scoring option for about 4 years. But for one half of a season of basketball, Gibbs was the best play I've seen from a shooting guard in the last 15 years. So
I think if the Rebels were in contention at the top of the conference, he would have been Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, just because of the way he dominated the actual conference or tournament play.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and they're projecting him about $2 million. What I've heard is that's basically how much money Pastner has to work with.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense for her to move on. Okay.
Yeah.
So we got two returnees, Tyrone Jones and Isaac Williamson. Both going to be true sophomores, have re-signed with the Rebels. Thought Tyrone Jones obviously was the key to get him back. I thought that was our best chance. They re-signed him. That was huge. And then the second guy, Gibbs, I just assumed is gone.
Right.
My second guy was actually Williamson. It's two. So they're young. They're going to be going from their freshman to sophomore year. That's typically where we see the biggest jump. But what were your thoughts with them getting those re-signed and those being the only folks that re-signed?
Yeah, so far, Tyron was. We talked about it. One of my favorite players to watch. I called him. I'm Gumby Slam it just because of the way he kind of moved around. He was just such a raw talent. So like you said, moving from that freshman to sophomore year, really excited to see his development. And then Ike Williamson, man. He came in, hit some really big shots as a freshman. Kind of was getting lost on defense a little bit here and there, and maybe, obviously needs to spend a little bit more time watching film and working on his footwork. But I think, as you said, their freshman core group love Pastner's energy and can kind of build a foundation and a program around kids that are staying around, as opposed to just the constant roster turnover and maybe getting retreads from some other conferences that come in. These guys have been in the program for a year. They're hard-nosed players, and I was excited that if we were going to sign two kids, I'm excited those are the two that we signed.
Me too. Tyrone Jones, I was thinking about, I was going on my walk for my usual lunch walk in the afternoon. I'm like, who's Tyrone Jones? He kind of reminds me of like a hybrid of Chris Wood / like Derek Jones, where he's not necessarily just a forward, but he's kind of a wing. He's kind of like in that middle. I think maybe lean a little bit more Chris Wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was huge. And if he can just add a little weight, kind of like what we saw from McCaw from his freshman to sophomore year, and Chris Wood too, we saw such a big jump. So, and both of them too, because they're not very big. I think if they add a little weight, it's definitely going to help. And they're both, one thing I noticed is both very good defensive players. And to segue into our next, thing, Cam Miles, four-star guard from Florida State, 6'2", 165 pounds, just signed with UNLV. First guy out of the portal, also a defensive guard. What's your thoughts on the first signing?
I was excited. Didn't get a ton of time to do a whole lot of research on him because he came in late last night or, kind of mid-afternoon yesterday. But it seems to be that he fits Pastner's mold. Athletic guard that can score, go downhill, play good defense, and can create on his own, which I think is exciting, especially that he is a sophomore and actually worked himself into the rotation for a few minutes. And he didn't play a ton at Florida State, but towards the end of the season, he actually worked himself into the rotation. So that means that he's coachable and he can get better. So I'm excited to see what that kid can do in Pastner's system, as well as coming alongside two additional sophomores. So these guys can all kind of grow up together and hopefully be a good core and foundation of a team for the next 3 years.
I agree, and I like actually what Pastner's doing is not necessarily going out after freshmen. It looks like he went after a couple, top 150 freshmen, didn't get them, but I think in this day and age, it's really hard to go after freshmen because they always, most of the time, they need time to develop. I thought Miles is interesting. He kind of ranked similar to Williamson, a little bit higher, and had similar offers. He seems like a pretty good athletic Mountain West guard. He played he played about, I think, like 13 minutes a game. Interesting enough, he still scored 5.4 points a game, 1.7 assists. He seems like he wants the ball in his hand. He seems actually more like a point guard. And Williamson seems like he's more of a shooting guard to me. It's kind of interesting because Williamson is 6 foot, so it's not like ideal. But what are your thoughts? Because they're both in the back. I don't think either of them are starting next year. Or if they are, I have concerns with next year's roster. But what are your thoughts for that? I like them as backups. But what positions do you think they're going to play and how they're going to help the team?
Are you talking about backup point guards possibly, or just backup guards? Or
backup guards,
one, two?
Shooting guard and point guard.
Yeah, I think it's good when you can have two guys that can play both positions, because if you want to play a running style, it's all about getting the rebound and getting the ball into a ball handler's hand. So if you have both Williamson and Cam being able to run the point, not having somebody that possibly could be dedicated like a Che Miles, who unfortunately is transferring, but they can just get out and run, and then you have a wing like Jones being able to run down court, and you get that ball even close to him. He can be at the 3-point line, take 2 steps, and he's dunking the ball. So it will be interesting for the style of play if we want to push the ball. Having those two on the court at the same time, I would love it if we got a little bit more of a senior guard play coming in from the transfer portal, because that's what I think you need to have deep runs in March, which is obviously the goal of any season. But having those two on the roster right now, I could see how they could kind of grow together. And again, either one of them can handle the ball and shoot the ball. We needed more scoring options this year. It was evident when it was just Gibby. Jones kind of came in a little bit, and then Hamilton was, if he could stay on the floor without the foul trouble.
It was interesting because he was a senior, but he was. It was interesting.
So I think if those guys can handle the ball and shoot the ball, I think we're in good shape. But I agree with you. Ideally, not them starting.
Yeah, okay, so here's my thoughts.
Let's hear it.
I think we literally need to bring in like 2 to 3 starters. And I hope these are not our starters. I like them how they project, but I think if you go into the season, assuming both of them are going to hit, like they seem both very promising, and I like both of them. But I think you want to bring in some talent that is proven. I think you need a starting point guard, shooting guard, and a wing that are proven to shoot minimum 2. Because the reality is probably between, and we saw, Williamson, when the first couple games, I'm like, oh my God, this kid's unreal. And then it shifted a little bit. But like, I can see the potential watching them both. But the reality is probably one of the two of them is actually going to be good or a starter in the future. So I'm hoping for an overhaul. It hasn't been a good start to the transfer. Well, I shouldn't say that. So far, the big targets, it looks like it was Edwards from, TCU, backup guard. He looked like he would have been the starting shooting guard. And Money Williams, Montana, who went off on us this year. Doesn't look like either of them are coming to UNLV. Edwards officially actually committed to Creighton. I'm not necessarily worried about it because I'm sure Pastner that may have been 1, and then he has 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. I'm sure the talent is similar, give or take. But either way, it's an interesting start. And I think there's a long way to go to this. I don't believe this is like, these are our 2 starting guards and Jones, and we're going to run it out that way.
Yeah, we're not holding open tryouts in the Thomas and Mack. But yeah, with Bug from the transfer that actually signed, the TCU guard that signed with Creighton, Creighton had brought in some dudes that I thought got us in a pretty decent position. Like, okay, maybe he thought he's going to be possibly lost on the depth chart and we could do something, but that's what happens. Has the Monty kid from Montana, has he signed with anybody?
He's not official, but the rumblings are he's unofficially signed with not us.
With not us. Right. Well, there you go. Yeah, so I think I'm not. We talked about. I'm not super nervous yet, just because this is just kind of seeming the way that it plays out. But my phone battery's dying every single day because I'm feverishly refreshing Twitter to see if we have any more commits coming in.
Same. All right. Who do we sign? Okay. Yeah, so that's my take. And who would you? Because I'm gonna put some money too. Because most of the team has gone on the transfer portal, which I actually don't think is a bad thing. Go out, test the market. Your spot may or may not be there. I actually like what Pastner's doing. Defensive-minded, aggressive, athletic play. The three that we have right now, they fit his kind of style. So I like that. I like the base of it. But who could you see potentially coming back? Probably not Gibbs,
Right.
but you think would make sense, and you would actually like to see them back on the team.
Jacob Benarby would be my vote for that. I think he, I heard rumors that he decided just not to play that last game, and so he was healthy, but I don't know if that's maybe
I don't know.
unsubstantiated. That's just what I had heard. But he was a good glue guy, role player, could rebound the ball and could pass. He passed very well for a big man.
Yeah.
So again, with that motion offense and having some guys cut, like a Tyron Jones being able to cut, and these aggressive guards, I would love to see Barnaby back. One, he was the one sole remaining player from last season, or from the prior season, from Kruger's final season to Pastner's first season. So to have some kind of consistency with a kid playing here for 3 straight years would be huge. I think he's a great glue guy, can rebound the ball and pass for a big man. So that's who I would love to see come back in the Scarlet and Gray.
Okay, I like it. Barnaby's cool. High IQ. I see him being like more of like an all Big West type 4, because I think he ultimately be a reserve here. So it's more of, does he want starter minutes, or does he love UNLV so much to be a backup to Jones? My guy is Diemble, which we didn't hear a lot about him.
Yeah.
So the reason behind this, though, is because Pastner came out, it was about 2 weeks ago. He had an interview, and he said, hey, we all heard about Che being out. The second guy, though, our starting center, which I thought Stevens was going to be the starting center.
Yeah, especially after that Stanford game. But
Yeah.
boy, were we wrong.
The starting center was going to be Diemble. And he came out and he's like, if Diemble was healthy, he would have been the second best center in the Mountain West last year.
Interesting.
So what that tells me is he'd probably be the best center in the Mountain West this year. And he didn't play, so I can't imagine he would have all this market value. I'm assuming his market value is about the same. You know, I guess the big question, though, and the only people who are going to really know this is UNLV, is, are they fearful of his injury reoccurring? I think that was the big thing with Che, because after it happened twice, I kind of was like, oh, maybe Che will come back. Gibbs will be gone. Che could play that role. But the more hearing about these injuries, Che's a really bad one, and to do it twice, that is very scary. And I don't think Pastner can risk another 8. I think if Pastner has another 18-win season, he's not the UNLV coach next year. So I don't think he can chance that. But Diemble is interesting to me if they believe he's going to be fully healthy for this year, and if he wants to come back. Yeah, I don't even know if he wants to come back or not, but
I think it's unfortunate when they come in with like Shea Miles. They come in. I'm assuming they get to keep their NIL money. I don't know how the whole thing
they
works,
do.
or the revenue share, whatever the case, whatever semantics they're calling it nowadays. But Dembele he had really good hands for a big. I mean, the limited games, I think he played in like 3 or 4 games. His footwork looked pretty good, and he has big hands. And sometimes you get kids coming over from Africa, and they've been playing soccer for so long, they have kind of like brick hands for a little bit. But he seemed like he was, he had good hands and he had decent footwork, and he came from Iowa, I think, right?
Yeah.
So obviously,
big, 6'8", 255. He wasn't really known for his rebounding, but a scoring big, I think, would definitely help.
Would be huge, absolutely. So I would love to see him back as well.
All right, cool. I think that's it. What would you rate Pastner's, or what would you give the grade for Pastner's first season as UNLV coach? And what do you think needs to be accomplished in this program moving forward?
So I give him a solid B-. Coming in late in the game and coming from a broadcast booth, not on the recruiting trail, not in kids' DMs. He had to kind of put that roster together at the last minute, and you have one kid coming back, was Jacob Benarby.
Yeah.
But again, his first season, with all that being said, and then the injuries, we've kind of talked ad nauseum about that. His first season achieving what Kevin Kruger did after 4 gives me a little bit of hope. So B- this season. If the season mimics last season, that B will definitely drop to a C-, maybe a D+.
Yeah. I'm going to give him a C+. Yeah, or he could do it incomplete because, I mean, but injuries are always a part of every sport, right? Mm-hmm. It's tough for your starting point guard and starting center to be out. And like you said, I think he did a good job for coming in late. He doesn't have this grace this time around. I just don't believe he can have – I think he needs to have at least 22 wins this year to retain his job, or like worst case scenario is like the number 1 or 2 seed in the NIT. I hope they're a turning team, but what I'm already seeing is with GCU, New Mexico, Nevada, they're getting a lot of their best players back, or they've transferred over. GCU's having a good run right now. So it looks like it's still like, and it's going to be an uphill battle going into next year. Tyron Jones, I mean, depending on how he develops this year, he may be the best player in the Mountain West. So he may have that, but he's going to have to surround, because he's not an elite scorer at this time. I don't believe he'll be that next year. Mm-hmm. I don't think he'll get that figured out, but he has to bring in some scorers. And we just got to win. Like, there's no excuse when you see New Mexico, GCU, Nevada winning every single year. I don't think the formula is hard. It's just fine. I think UNLV, what they do is they want to get these big star athletic players that are not actually really that great at basketball.
Right.
And it's crazy to me because we just got to start winning Mountain West conferences like every other year. We got to create a little momentum. There's too much time has gone by. Mm-hmm. And even I think the fans would come out. And it's hard right now because it's a hard sell for UNLV because nobody's going to games.
Right. Oh, yeah. You can play in this 18,000 seat stadium when there's 3,000 folks there.
Right.
So it's,
so whoever comes in now, I mean, you got to be okay with like, hey, nobody's going to be there for probably at least the first half of the year unless we start winning. Mm-hmm. It may take like 2 years, and then you have the New Mexico and GCUs that sell out every game. So yeah, my expectation of this program is they have to win no matter what. There's no excuses next year. I really like Pastner. I'm rooting for him. I love his intangibles. Mm-hmm. I love his energy. I love his enthusiasm. So it's not a Pastner thing. It's just like the culture of UNLV basketball has to change, and it has to change now. And I didn't want to have this on the questions, but NBA is coming to Las Vegas. How does that affect UNLV basketball?
I think it's going to be. This is going to be these next 2 years for UNLV basketball is really going to make or break the future of the program, because entertainment dollars are being stretched mightily thin. With you got the A's, NBA team coming, Knights are still here, everything else that are events. It's going to be tough to get butts in the seats if there's not a winning program. There's no consistency.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Yeah, they got to at the minimum win Mountain West championship. So we'll see. Hey, UNLV football got good when the Raiders came. So you never know.
Absolutely.
They just got to be okay with being like the B show in town, you know. And they've kind of been like the C show in town for about 10 years. But all right, number next. All right, we'll talk a little of UNLV football today. Spring practices going on. What have you been hearing?
It seems the general consensus, I think, when Mullen came out and said the offense and defense are going to be a little bit more balanced this year. It's to be seen. Our defense, I think we spent the last 2 years really kind of harping on the defense, the defensive side of the ball. So we'll see kind of how they have going on. I'm interested to see because the quarterback battle is very similar to the one that we had before the beginning of last year's season, where Arnold is kind of a good passer and has those intangibles, but then Alex Orji is just a beast. So it was fun to watch that quarterback battle last season. It'll be very interesting to see what they do this offseason and who actually gets the starting nod to see what next year's offense looks like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Arnold will get the nod. I think Orji's they're gonna have packages for him, and kind of like we talked. I think that was one of our first podcasts. I was excited about Orji because if the offensive line can really push the pile, that could be a really fun, dominating offense. So I think I got some breaking news for you today. Do you want some fun stuff?
Let's go.
Okay. Per Cofield, spring the starting offensive line. Left tackle, Will Thomas. Left guard, Colton Thomason. Center, Austin Boyd.
We love Austin Boyd.
Right guard, Amari Taze. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but he was projected as the center. They moved him right guard. And right tackle right now is Jackson Brown.
Well, I know you love those lines.
Yeah, I know. That was more for me.
That's awesome.
Also, it was funny because the last pod we did too, I'm like, they need to bring in another offensive lineman. And it was like the next day they brought in Griffin Scroggs from Appalachian State. I texted you. And then they also, I don't know if you saw it, Joseph Metzger, versatile offensive lineman, 6'5", 310 pounds from Holy Cross. So what I'm hearing is from everybody's, I have not gone on spring practice.
I haven't either.
The offensive line looks huge. And more athletic. So I think we're going to see a more dominant offensive line. And it sounds like the younger receivers, Bell and McNair, have been showing out. They were both highly recruited this class and the last class. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like they're going to be making plays. And I think the big thing in defense, it's funny that I think Gunther is still the defensive corner, but he doesn't speak at all. Shire's been the one that's been coming out, and it's like, so I think he's technically not the defensive corner, but he's the defensive coordinator.
Right, like in name, Gunter's in name only, pretty much. Right, Dino, defensive coordinator in name only.
Right.
It is interesting because every interview that I've seen has been him, and which is awesome.
Thank God.
Yeah. Which is awesome. He came back and spent a little time with the Rebels, or spent more time with the Rebels, because I think having him on that side of the ball is only going to help. Yeah.
Interesting, too. Charter came out. He technically, I think there's a lot of us thought that he ran a 3.35. He technically does not run a 3.35. He runs a 4.25. Did not know that.
Well, there you
go. So I guess there's hybrids to it. So I thought that was interesting. So UNLV favored for every game this season. How do you feel about it? Let's go.
And, John, if you would have told me that when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old, I'd be like, what dimension am I living in right now?
Right.
It's exciting, and it's the way it should be. We should have the best team in the new Mountain West, but it's also a little bit dangerous too. We've always kind of played with a little bit of a chip on our shoulders, being the underdog, having to fight. I'm hoping that they don't start reading their clippings and think that they're better than they are, because it's, and I think Mullen runs a pretty tight ship, so that discipline hopefully will build the confidence, not the headlines and the lines.
Yeah.
Not your favorite lines. I'm talking about the betting lines.
I got it. Thank you. It's exciting going into next year. It looks on paper, offense and defense should be upgraded. You're right, though. Until we start playing the games, you never know. They might completely fool themselves. But right off the bat, I'm thinking 10, 11 wins. 11 wins may get them into the college football playoffs. We'll see. Mountain West is probably the third or fourth best football conference now. Probably fourth. Sunbelt, I guess, kind of might be a little bit higher. So another interesting note, North Dakota State officially joined the Mountain West. It happened right after our pod, too. What's your thoughts of the addition and the Mountain West football schedule? Conference specifically.
So conference specifically, and speaking of it kind of early on, we play Hawaii really early in the season. So that's kind of something that I'm a little bit leery about. Timmy Chang and his offense is, their air raid offense. They looked really good last season. Yeah. And so I'm just hoping that we kind of get those kinks worked out before we have to face Hawaii. So that's kind of an early season making me wince a little bit.
I love that game. And their quarterback's back.
So this is going to be great. And then New Mexico towards the end of the season, you just never know with how healthy it is. We had our bye weeks came in opportune times last year. Doesn't seem like we have that. We're playing a lot of games towards the end of November, right in a row. So that New Mexico game, I'm circling on the schedule just to see how we are health-wise. That city up north, we don't even have to worry about, because we're going to win that game. Yeah. But I am excited to see how North Dakota State comes in and plays up a division. They are a perennial winner, so they have the culture of winning, and sometimes that's more important than how many stars are behind a kid's name coming out of high school, is just that they know how to win games. So I'm very interested to see how they kind of play up a division and what that game looks like, this season and seasons going forward.
Yeah, I'm impressed with the Mountain West and what they have done with everything, because it seems like the Pac, since they defected, really has struggled with expansion, and I'm really impressed at how the Mountain West has added North Dakota State. GCU is obviously an amazing ad for basketball. But I love the North Dakota State ad. They got a ton of money from them, too, to join. They were ready. A perennial program. I don't know how many national champions. It's like 10 or 11 in the last 15 years, something like that. Something insane. So I think they add a lot. I thought it was interesting that I think they have no home games against UNLV, Hawaii, and New Mexico for the first year. I actually thought that was going to happen.
Welcome to the Mountain West.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's a bad thing because it may take them about a year to get. I think they're going to be in the top 5, but New Mexico is going to be good. Hawaii is going to be good. Air Force, I think a lot of people forget about Air Force because they've been bad maybe for the last year or two, but that's been a good football program the years. I think Air Force can compete for Mountain West championships from their past pedigree, and a lot of like the Army and the Navies, they've done pretty well because the kids don't transfer out.
Right.
So they actually have a competitive advantage.
And that triple option offense that they run is tough. If kids come in, they have never played against it, they've only seen it on film, it's a totally different ballgame if we're on the defensive side of the ball.
So I'm excited for football. We didn't get to Raiders today or NFL draft, so we're going to have to do that later on. Ryan, thanks for being on, brother. I appreciate you. Guys, run Vegas. Take care of yourselves today.